expense tracker today. Very basic one. This is just a tutorial for you to understand the functionalities and everything. We use a form to take the inputs in, and we use a table to display the inputs. And what I mean by inputs is the expenses. So let's get to it. The way this video is going to be structured, I'm sure you should know this. Start with the HTML, then CSS, then enter with the JavaScript. And we're using CodePen for this. The code will be available down below in the description. If you're new to this channel, my name is Sam. We do projects, tutorials, data structures and algorithms, anything to make you a great programmer. And yeah, that's it for today. That's what we're doing today. And hope you enjoyed. Let's get to it. Tracker out. The next thing is over to the header. And so create a header, and inside this header we'll have our H1 expense tracker app, as we can see displayed. And that's it for our header. Okay, I don't want this to be a div. I want it to be a header. And the next one is a section. We'll create a section. And this section will have a class of content. And this section basically is going to hold everything that's going to be inside our expense tracker. Is going to hold the h3 tags. And the h3 tag too, will give it a class. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I will answer them. Second title. And this is basically telling you add your new item. Add your new expense. Next one is, now we have the div that is basically going to have a div with a class name form, and this div is going to hold our form, and we don't need any action for this form. But what we do need is an ID. We need an ID for this form. X form. Yes. Basically expense form. I don't want to write the whole expense. That's why I'm putting an exp form. Hope that is logical. Yes. Form. And now we're creating a form line. And this form line, because the way we're doing the display is it's going to be one in the left and one in the right. form line. This is the left form line. And why I did it like this is because I want to differentiate them, but I also want them to have some similarities. That's why I created form line, and then I created a space and then left, because I want to move this to the left. There will be form line right. So that means I can use form line to do some things to the whole inputs in the form, but I can also move the left to the left and move the right to the right. So that's why we're using this here. So next thing we have is spam. Span, not a spam. That would be a problem if we had a spam. Yeah, we have a span, and span is for type. I keep on saying this. Don't want to sound like a broken record, but if you have a question, leave them in the comments below. It's better you ask than guess. It's better you ask than it's better you ask and know than just stay in silence. So yeah, that's the whole point. It's about learning here. So I'm always happy to answer questions. Yeah, this will need a name, but the ID is going to be type, because this is basically what this is going to do. This select is wants you to select card, Bitcoin card, the type of payment you're using, or the type of the payment you used for the expense. So that's what this is basically doing here. And just now we have the options. Select payment method. I don't need to put select here, I'm just going to put payment method. And then payment method. So we can see here, this is taking the payment method. Actually, I don't want the dots, dots. I just want it like that, payment method. Yeah, so after that now, the next thing is to actually do the other options. And I can just copy this. And I want to increase the screen size here just so there's enough space so nothing is. It's a payment method. Next one is card. Yeah, and here to be changed to card. The next payment method is, you guessed it right, cash. Dollar bill, yeah. Cash. And this will change to cash. The next payment is, come on, let's go crypto. Cryptocurrency. Crypto coin. Crypto. I'm just leaving it at crypto. And yeah, we change this to crypto. Sorry for the yawn. Crypto. And next one is other. So this is, I don't know what other payment they are, maybe trade by barter or I don't know, but just so you can write it, maybe, I don't know. I can't think of any other payment types. So yeah, that's it for that part. That part. Yes, the next part now is we do the form. This is going to include the inputs. So basically now we can see here, you can choose card, cash, crypto, other. Okay, for some reason, it's like, I think I mistakenly erased the first one, which is supposed to be payment method. Payment method. Payment methods. Yeah, add an S to it. Yes. So now that's it for that part. The next part is creating the inputs. And each input is going to be in a div, like we did. Sorry for the second yawn. Like we did in the this each div is going to have the same class form line, but yes, this is going to be form line right, and inside this div we have a span, and this span is for name. It's acting like you could also use a label while we're using span here, and then you put inputs. The input is yes, going to be a text. Got it right for once. And the ID is just basic name because that's what it's holding. And the thing that I for sure am going to do now is just copy and paste this so we can save some time here. Yeah, I don't need all that right now. Name, cache, name, cache, no. Name, then date, amount, and the last one is that's it. Name, date, and amount. and the name is going to be on the left. The date, excuse me, the date is going to the left. The name will be at the right. The type is at the left. The method, payment method. Amount. 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 And this type is text. Could put a number too, but I think text is alright. Because we're just printing, it's not like we're making any calculation. If we were adding some stuff together, then we wouldn't use text, we would use number. And now the last but not the least, we're almost done with this. Then we hop to the CSS, is we put our button. And our button type is submit type. And we also give it a class. Class will be button safe. And in between that, what was it? Say add expense. Add expense, so add brand new expense. Add brand new expense. Let me just give it all capitals. Add brand new expense. Quite a large button, but yeah, we'll leave it like that. So we're done with the form now. The next part is we have to create another section. And this section is going to be for our table. And we'll call it content. Now inside this section, we have table. In this table, we give it a class table. Yeah, sometimes you don't have to think too hard. And then we have a TED. Inside the TED, we have TR, our table rows, and TH. And then we have type. I'm just gonna copy and paste this. I'm gonna change this type to name. The next one to date. And the last one is amount. Okay, we still have another one. Option. Yes, after doing this now, it's the next part is we have where the where they're going to where the new expenses are going to show up. Now we use a T-body, table body. I'll give the table body an ID. Expense table. Yes, and that's about it. That's it for the table. That's it for the HTML. We're done with the HTML. The next part is the CSS. Let's get to it. As usual, start with this to actually set the margins. Set the margin to 0 and the font family. The font family, yes. Where is it? Yes, we can see the difference. The font family has kicked in. Now let's get to it. So for body, we have a background of RGBA 35. I have the color code, so that's why I'm doing it. I didn't memorize the color code. O.808. And feel free to put your own color. Chose this colors really randomly, didn't think too much about it because I feel it's quite not that important in this, at least for now. It's more about the functionality we're doing this. We use Rebecca Popple because I like the name. Never knew there was a Rebecca Popple. Thought Rebecca was a name. And it was a type of color too, so yeah. Rebecca Popple. Purple. Purple. Yeah, purple. Next is title. Yeah, and the title, give it a width. A width of 500 pixel. And also a color. 0869A6. And the margin, we're using percentage here, given a margin of 3%. auto, of course. Then we deal with our content. Now the content is going to have another width of 580, 580px, a width of 0 auto. Let me reduce this a little bit so we can actually, because now we're in the CSS and CSS doesn't have long lines like that. The next thing is the background color. RGBA 36 228.138. Yes, we can see the lighter. I might change it if it doesn't look that good. But for now, we're leaving it like that. Padding 3%. And also padding left, because I want it to move a little bit. 6%. Yep, you can see the movement. Now the next part is our second title. Just making sure it's the same. Yes, our second title. The second title, we just want to text the line first. Align it to the left. I have a margin of 2%, 0. You can see it moved a little bit. Now it's aligned with the type, name, date, amount. And a font weight. $100. You know what? I don't like this font weight. I prefer the way it looked earlier. Yeah, so I'm leaving it like that. Now, next one is our form ID. And here it's really quick and simple. 5px. Yes. Nice. Now we deal with the form lines. Display inline flex. And the padding of 5 pixel, 0 pixel. So now I want to move. We're going to move the left form line to the left. And the way we're doing that is we're using float. I just want to make sure that you know that there are different ways of doing it. This is why I'm doing it, because this is really not the most important part. The most important part of this product is the JavaScript. But you need all this to actually make the JavaScript. So that's why I'm saying the colors and all that. I'm not putting too much time in picking the right colors. It's more about the interactivity of this and actually it keeping track of the expenses. Dot right. Do the same thing, float. Right. And then margin right is 100 px. Now the next thing is the next elements we're going to style our input and select. Give it a width of 130 px and a margin left of 10 px. You see it's coming together. So the next part is we're styling the tables. Just call the table element and we give it a width. We want this to take the width 100% of the container it is in. You see? This way it takes 100% and it spreads itself the right way. Now the third, give it a background color of 9. And a line height of 30 pixels. Yup. Now we're just going to touch the last one, which is the buttons. Touch the buttons and we're done with the CSS. Okay, don't go too fast. Done with the CSS button. And maybe you're asking yourself, why am I not using the ID that I created for the button instead of calling it? Because all those things I created was mainly for the JavaScript. 200 pixels and give it a color of white and padding of 10 pixel. Align the text so everything is in the center. Give it a background color so we can see it. RGB. 76, 190, 146. Yeah, we can see you. Font size of 1.1 rem. No, not rem, m. Line height 20 pixels. Yeah, border radius for sure. Way too pointy radius. Way too pointy borders. A border radius of yeah, 10 pixel. And the margin of 14 pixels, 25%. And of course, we need to give it a pointer. Yeah, it's a 50 is better. And the border radius, I think 5 is better. Oh no. And the HTML, you know what? I'm just going to add in this payment method. Yes, we're done with the CSS. Now let's get to the sweet part, the JavaScript. Yeah, and also we're dealing with the JavaScript part. We're finally at the JavaScript part, the functionalities, yeah, the good stuff. So let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're basically going to add an event listener to the form. And yeah, you know when you add an event listener, you also add the function, and this is not going to be a click, it's going to be a submit because we're submitting the form. So that's the whole scenario of it. You can use event listeners for clicks, for submits, for other stuff too. So yeah, that's what we're doing it for here. So let's get to it before I keep on rambling. Let me actually show you what I mean. So it's a document.get element by ID, and the element we're getting is exp form. And then we add the event listener. Make sure I spell this right because I don't have autocorrect, and if you spell anything wrong here, it's not gonna work. Yup. And create a function, we'll call it add expense. So this function is basically going to add the expense. We haven't created a function, we just give it a function name, add expense. So now what we're doing here, we're going to initialize an array called expenses of the expenses, and we're going to store it in a local storage. So if you haven't used local storage, this is a nice time to actually see how you can store things locally. So just to put a comment here, initialize array of expenses and read from storage. So how do we do that? We create a constant. We call it expenses. So after that, we use the JSON, the parse, because we have to parse it. Now we say local storage dot get item expenses. Yeah, and after that we say and then we have to put the array, which is going to be stored inside it. So now it's the time to create the function. So this function is going to add the expenses. So our function add expense is function add expense. Function add expense, put an event, and then we say event dot prevent default. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. Okay, I'll get to them. Get type. So here I'm just putting a comment. We're getting the type, also getting the name, the date, and the amount. So we use let type equals to document dot get element by ID type, and we're getting the value. That's why we put the value here. Want the value there, and I'm just going to copy this because I don't want to write this over and over again. Yes, just change it up. Name, date, and amount. Yes, they need a semicolon. Don't forget your semicolons, it's good practice. Sometimes I forget it because I don't use them in Python, but I'm starting to actually use them in Python because they don't affect it. So now the next thing is if. So now we want to make sure that when it's filled, that we know, and when it's filled, we're going to add an ID to it. So if type is not equals to choose one. Let me just check HTML real quick. No. If type is not equals to payment method. If type is not equals to payment method. If type is not equals to payment method. And name dot length is greater than 0. So that means the name dot length is filled up. and date is not equal to 0. So that means the date is not empty. And amount is greater than 0. Then if all these conditions are true, then we create an object called constant. I store it in constant expense is equal to type name date and amount. And then we give them an ID. Expenses dot length is greater than 0. We'll say expenses. No, this should be expenses too. Dot length -1 dot ID plus 1 1. Yes. So now we're going to push them to our local storage. So we're pushing the expenses to our expense. And now our local storage. So local storage. Now we set the item. We say expenses. Maybe I should have used another one instead of expense and expenses. They're very similar. But I hope you understand that .json does stringify. This is how we set items in JavaScript. Now we reset them as a document, the get element by ID as form the reset. We're using the reset function here. And now so the next thing we have to do is we're going to create a function now that's basically going to show them, because now we've stored them to our local storage. Now I want to show them. So the way we create this is just say constant show expenses, and this equals to a function which is in an object. the function in an object. So we want to show them in our TR, because if you see our HTML here, we have this with this in it. So we want them to show under these. This is our TR. So that's what we're doing here. We want them to show up. I'll say constant expense table is equal to document dot get element by ID. And the element we're getting by its ID is this here, because this is where we want them to show up. So then we say expense table the inner HTML is equal to an empty. So now we're going to use a for loop to iterate through to pick up all the expenses we've stored in our local storage. So that's the next part. Now we use a for loop to iterate through it and take up all the expenses that we've stored. Say for let I equal to 0. I is less than expenses dot length. And then we increment I. That's a basic for loop. We're using a template literal to actually show the values of our type, name, date, and amount of our expenses. And we'll use the $sign and a semicolon. But let me just show it so it actually, instead of just rambling on about it. So the way we do it is say expenses table dot inner HTML plus equals, and here we use a back quote. So we use a back quote, and let me just close the back quote too because I don't want to forget to close it. And we use, now it's time to write the TR table row. And the table row, we will have the TD. So this is to show the strings of each element, of each input. That is the type, the name of the expense, the date which the expense was, the date, and the amount. I'm going to do that with this $sign and the semicolon here. And then expenses index I dot type. Yeah, that's it. I'm just going to copy this and, as usual, change each. This is name, date, and the amount. And for the amount, because we want a dollar sign to actually show in front of it, this dollar sign is for actually showing it as a string. Then we add another dollar sign to show the dollar sign before the amount. And the next thing is our options, because in our options, we want it to actually show a delete, so we can delete the expenses that we've written, that we've just showed up. So we want to be able to delete each row, and we are going to create a function for that later on. So yeah, but I want to create the button now for it. The way we do the button is I'll give it a class because we're using an anchor tag for the button. We'll give it a class delete button, and then we give it a event listener on click. I'm just going to um, I'm going to name the function here. We haven't written the function, but the name of the function is going to be delete expenses, delete expense. And I also want that to show up, so that's why we're adding this. Expense. Yeah, .id. Because we're basically creating an ID for it. And it's going to show delete. Yes, so that's about it. Now we should be able to use this function. But for us to use this function now, we will have to call the function. Let's just see if so far it's working. So we'll call the function below here. And also we have to put the function below our add. So the function gets called when it's been stored. So now let's check it out. Say cash. Put the date, 25th. We spent for food, 150. Okay, expenses. Yeah, so now we can see them showing up right down. I had some spelling mistakes and all that. But yes, and I added a comma when I shouldn't have. But yeah, we can see it's showing up now. So now, but if we click this, it doesn't work because we haven't created a function for that. So now that's just all we need to do is we need to create the delete function. It's a constant delete. Delete expense. Delete expense. Let's do ID. And we use a for loop to delete it too. Let I equal to 0. I is less than expense. Expenses dot length. And I plus plus. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I will answer them. So, because I don't want this video to be too long, so I can't explain every single detail I'm writing right now. But if you put them down in the comments, I will answer you for sure. Yeah, so let's get to it. We're almost done now. And yeah, so we set our condition. If expenses dot index dot ID is equal to ID, then we splice it. We're going to use the splice function. Expenses dot splice I1. Next thing is local storage. So we'll set the item in the local storage. Dot set item and sys dot JSON dot stringify expenses. Then we'll call the function show expenses. So now when we click this button, it should get deleted. You see it deletes. It is working. The only thing we will add next, we'll go to the CSS just to really little detail. But I'll just put an underline and I'll also give the cursor a pointer. So that's the final touch to this project. And after that, we're finished. Say text decoration, underline, and cursor, pointer. So yeah, that's it. And now we can see deleted. It actually shows the pointer. And yep, that's it for the expense tracker. Try it out yourself. Play with the code. You could also add, you can maybe add an icon instead of anchor tag there just to switch it up a little bit. And yeah, that's it. If you enjoyed the video, if you learned from it, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to this channel. We'll release content on web development, programming, and yeah, all that good stuff. And that's it from me. Bye, peace out, and see you in the next video.